Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into literally one of the most astonishing stories ever told, the story of us. But before we get into the history, let's do a quick little thought experiment. Just imagine, for a second, a world where every single modern convenience you rely on is, well, just gone, stripped away overnight. We're talking no cars in the driveway, no trains on the tracks, no planes up in the sky. Actually, take it a step further. Imagine the very concept of the wheel has just completely vanished from the face of the earth. Crazy, right? So if you woke up tomorrow to that reality, zero modern transport, how far do you think you could realistically go? Just think about your daily routine, your morning commute, running to the grocery store, visiting family across town. Without all our modern infrastructure, our world shrinks incredibly fast. For most of us living today, our absolute maximum range on foot, before the exhaustion, the blisters, or let's be honest, a total lack of navigation skills kicks in, might be just a few kilometers. It really highlights this fascinating, almost unsettling vulnerability in how we live today. We are entirely, 100% dependent on our machines to move us around. And it's a pretty jarring contrast when you really think about it. Because on one hand, you have us, right? Modern humans who will literally pull out our phones to order a ride just to avoid walking a few blocks in a light drizzle. But on the other hand, look at our early ancestors. These guys didn't just walk to the next valley over. They walked millions of kilometers on foot, collectively spreading across the entire globe. They achieved this mind-blowing level of endurance and just relentless forward momentum that's almost impossible for our modern brains to wrap around. They relied completely on their own 2 feet to conquer a world that was entirely wild. And let's be absolutely clear about what that untamed world actually looks like. They didn't have nicely paved trails or GPS or those fancy moisture-wicking hiking boots. Nope. They ventured into deadly ancient forests where predators were literally lurking behind every shadow. They crossed these vast, waterless deserts where just one wrong turn meant certain death. They scaled freezing, snowy mountain ranges, and eventually even faced down stormy, unpredictable seas. The really crucial takeaway here is that facing these brutal terrains, it wasn't some fun weekend adventure or a lifestyle choice. It was the absolute, non-negotiable condition for their survival. If they stopped moving, well, they perished. Which brings us to Section 1, the first great journey, walking for survival. Now, to really grasp the sheer scale of deep time here, we've got to look way, way back, about 3.6 million years. That's the age of the famous Laetali footprints found in Tanzania. Just picture this. 3.6 million years ago, a couple of early hominins are walking upright across a plain that's just been dusted with fresh volcanic ash. And then the rain falls, basically cementing their footprints into the earth forever. Those prints are the earliest known evidence of our ancestors taking their first literal steps, upright, into the unknown. It was this massive biological spark, right? It freed our hands and totally transformed us into the ultimate long-distance walkers of the animal kingdom. Okay, now let's fast forward a bit to about 300,000 years ago, when anatomically modern humans kicked off the Great Migration out of Africa. Think about the sheer audacity of doing that. They were literally walking away from the only world they had ever known. And they had no maps, no compasses pointing north, and obviously no rides to hitch. They were driven entirely by raw courage, relentless curiosity, and of course the desperate need to find new resources. Every single step they took was a step into completely uncharted territory. Moving right along to Section 2, conquering the oceans, navigating the unknown. So eventually, we went from staring at the water with caution to actually figuring out how to build vessels to cross it. And those first sea crossings, absolute monumental leaps of faith. I mean, humans actually managed to cross treacherous waters to reach the shores of Australia tens of thousands of years ago. But honestly, the most breathtaking achievement might just be navigating the vast, totally boundless Pacific Ocean. Early Polynesian explorers crossed thousands of miles of open, empty water. How on earth did they do it? Well, by reading the ocean swells, tracking the flight paths of birds, and most incredibly, by memorizing the complex maps of the stars above them. They basically turned the night sky into a flawless, built-in GPS system. Let's hit Section 3, Animals and the Wheel, Accelerating Innovation. So here is where we see this rapid technological leap that completely rewrites our relationship with distance. Step 1, domesticating dogs. This was huge for protection and hauling stuff around. Step 2, horses. This was a total game changer. Suddenly, a human could travel upwards of 40 miles a day and use way less energy doing it. The world was shrinking fast. And then, step 3, the invention of the wheel. This brilliant leap of engineering meant we could suddenly move massive amounts of food, heavy materials, and groups of people across vast distances. At this point, we weren't just surviving our environment anymore, we were actually starting to master it.
And that perfectly sets up Section 4, the birth of roads, paving the way for empires.
Just take a second and consider what a road actually represents. It's a permanent, physical commitment to movement. The creation of ancient networks like, say, the 50,000 miles of Roman roads that completely crisscross Europe, or the Royal Road of the Persian Empire, these did something truly extraordinary. They connected distant, completely isolated lands. Sure, they allowed for the rapid movement of armies, but they also enabled the rapid exchange of goods, of languages, and of revolutionary ideas. They took these scattered, isolated human migrations and transformed them into highly organized, world-dominating civilizations. Honestly, without roads, the great empires of history just simply could not have existed.
Finally, Section 5, the spirit of survival, courage, and curiosity. When we pull back and really look at this staggering journey as a whole, we see a story that kicks off deep in prehistory. Right, 3.6 million years ago with those first tentative footsteps in the volcanic ash at Laetoli. Then it builds up to 300,000 years ago with that incredibly daring migration out of the African continent. Fast forward again, and thousands of years ago, we see the unbelievable bravery of humans launching tiny boats into the vast ocean, guided by nothing of the cosmos. And finally, just hundreds of years ago, which is literally a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things, we get the invention of the wheel and the paving of roads that accelerated our progress to breakneck speeds. What we're looking at here isn't just a timeline of travel. It's really a timeline of human willpower.
So here's a question I want to leave you with today. What exactly was that spark? What was that fierce, unyielding drive that pushed our ancestors out into the terrifying unknown, generation after generation? And maybe the even bigger question, when we look at ourselves today, living in this age of absolute convenience, where we honestly hesitate to walk even a few blocks, what happened to that raw survival instinct? Have we totally lost the bravery of our ancestors? Or is it maybe just sleeping, waiting for the day when the wheels finally stop turning? Definitely something to chew on the next time you decide to take a walk. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.